All right, I'm currently unlocking the meeting.
Yeah, we got three videos.
Quite a few people are joining now, and I will go ahead and start the recording.
Maybe we'll get it.
Yeah, just that whole progression of how things have happened.
Okay.
All right, good morning, everyone. The recording has started, and Jody and Mr. Chair Baker, I will hand it over to you.
Okay, and do you have the opportunity to mute everybody on the WebEx?
Ma'am.
Thank you.
I call the meeting to order. I would ask that the members wear their masks unless they are talking. Even though I think we are at safe distance, I think it's just the right thing to do. Let us bow our head for a moment of reflection, please.
Okay, I got it.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you. Do you have any introductions, Chad?
I do, actually, today, real quickly. First of all, I want to be sure that everyone recognizes Melissa Charleroy is running our board services group, and is going to be helping us with lots of things here. So I appreciate that she's here. I think that Regina Ross was here at the last meeting, but Regina is maybe online, and now she's our chief legal officer, working in Jody Brooks' group. We got a lot of intro. Renetta Marshall is our new chief operating officer, and so this is her first meeting. And Ted Phillips is our new chief financial officer, and this is his first meeting. And so welcome to those of you that are new. Welcome to those of you that have come back. We're glad to have you here. Ted and Ray, along with Jody, Laura, David, Sheila, and I will make up the leadership team that I'm proud that they're part of this. So thank you very much for that.
Fantastic, and I extend my welcome as well. We're really, really glad to have you, and we're at full speed now. We have on our agenda is the adoption of the agenda. Can I get a motion to do that?
So moved.
Second?
Discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Next is our safety briefing. Margaret Limbaugh, please.
Did you mute everybody?
Margaret, you're on mute if you're speaking.
Sorry. Thank you, Chair Baker and members of the board. I'm Margaret Limbaugh. I'm the Director of Electric Generation, Engineering, and Project Management, and I'm reviewing the safety briefing with you this morning. Let's take a minute to recall that in the event of emergency, dial 911 and alert others. If the emergency requires an evacuation, use the stairwell and not the elevator. And for those in the T19 meeting area, the evacuation assembly location is a parking lot located at Ashley and Main Street, the Baptist parking lot. Be sure to pair up with your safety partner, which is the person on your right, and be cognizant of the potential for trip hazards. Lastly, please put your cell phones on silent and your computers on mute unless actively speaking during today's board meeting.
Thank you, Margaret.
Thank you, Margaret. Next, we have comments from the public. Melissa, you have a couple, I understand, that you'd like to read in?
first one comes from Keith Rue from Harbert Realty Services. Harbert Realty Services is under construction for the Park Place at San Marco project, JEA number 2019-3394. And we're just informed about the upcoming utility capacity fee increase. Our project plans were approved and permitted by JEA on May 4th, 2021. We conducted the pre-construction meeting with JEA staff on September 2nd, 2021. Materials have been delivered to the site and utility crews are installing the water main. We understand the need for JEA to increase these fees over time. However, this initial increase was not accounted for in the budget for this project. The land has been purchased and construction financing has already been obtained. We respectfully request that JEA maintain the capacity fees that were in place at the time of construction commencement for this project. Thank you. We did have another email that came in. However, they did not request it to be read.
Okay.
So we'll get that to the board.
Thank you.
All right, and we have Cindy Trimmer. Would you like to speak?
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. Cindy Trimmer, 1 Independent Drive, Suite
Can you
1200.
move the microphone down so, yeah, thank you.
I'm a land use lawyer with Driver McAfee. This was brought to our attention by Travato Development Group, and several of our other development clients have reached out expressing similar concerns to what you just heard. Everybody understands that the rates haven't gone up since 2005 and that we do need a rate increase. But we've looked at the projects that are in the pipeline for this developer and some of our others, and we have projects, for example, where permits are pulled, construction's already taken place, we're well past the point of no return, but the grandfathering clause that's contemplated doesn't really provide a meaningful opportunity for these projects to take advantage of that benefit, because it can take a year and a half before you're pulling your meter, or would be at any point where you could do that. We have projects that have already been underwritten, closed, but haven't come out of the ground. We have projects that have already had the pro formas done that are under contract. All of these are materially affected by this proposed change and wouldn't benefit from the grandfathering clause that's contemplated. So what we would like to propose or ask the committee to consider is an alternative type of grandfathering where, for example, you could prepay before the end of the year. We understand there's concerns with prepayment based on what's happened in the past, so we'd say make this prepayment non-refundable. But it would be something that would give you a meaningful opportunity to lock in your rate now based on what's underwritten and what your project can sustain, so that you can continue on with these projects that are at the various stages while still allowing for the new things coming online to proceed under the increased rate. And I'm happy to answer any questions on that, but we do represent, like I said, many of the developer clients in town, and this particular developer that has multiple projects in Brooklyn, San Pablo, Hendricks, all over. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions of her? Do we have any online?
So, Jason, at this time, that was the last speaker card that we have for folks in the room, and so because this is a hybrid meeting, we need to call for public hearing online. Can you walk us through that process, please?
I sure will. Good morning. This is, sorry, I've got a little feedback here. Everybody, 1 second. Good morning. This is Jason Peacock. I'll give you a brief overview of the WebEx controls for public comment. If you're joining us from a desktop or a smartphone, you will see several buttons across the bottom. The first button looks like a microphone. If it's red, it means you're muted, and you will be on mute for the majority of the meeting unless recognized to speak. If you're recognized to speak, you will click on the microphone button, and it will turn green. This means that you're unmuted and people can hear you. We ask that you mute your line when you're not speaking. This allows us to reduce the amount of background noise. Now, located on the right side, you will find an icon that looks like a person labeled Participants. This option will allow you to see a list of individuals who have joined the meeting. At the top of the list, your name will be visible, and to the right, you will notice a gray icon that looks like a hand. If you click it, it'll turn blue, and that lets me know that you would like to be recognized for comment. Those that have called directly, there are 2 ways you can notify me that you would like to provide comment. The first is by pressing *3 on your phone, which will raise your hand. Or you may press *6 to unmute your line. If you unmute your line, please state your name so that everyone may hear who is speaking before providing your comment. As we go through this meeting, I will be moderating, have the ability to mute everyone's line. I will only do so to ensure that the meeting runs smoothly. At this time, I'm going to look through the list and see if anyone is requested to provide comments. 1 second. I have a raised hand from Daniel Blanchard. I will go ahead and unmute your line. Unmute yourself, please, and go ahead, Daniel.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
Great. My name's Daniel Blanchard. I'm from Southern Impression Development. We build single-family, multifamily product across the East Coast. And I'll start by saying that we've got a great relationship with JEA, and the folks we work with there are doing a good job, and we've got open lines of communication, and we're generally pretty darn happy. But the fee increase is a tremendous concern for us. We try to build affordable product, and the increase on this fee has just a tremendous impact on the affordability of rental units and for sale units. It is a absolutely huge increase for us on these products where we try to be affordable. We, on the construction side, we scratch and scrape and try to do everything that we can do to save $50 here, $100 there, to try and get this product as affordable as we possibly can. And to have an increase from around 2,800 or so to 10,000 is mind-boggling, and it's going to pull some people out of the market, especially in the affordable range. So what I'm asking you to do is to reconsider these fees and do what I think is fair and what's right, and that's that when you've got a capacity issue or concern, or you need some improvements done, everyone who uses them should pay for that. And so what happens in this fees is, with this type of a fee, you've got a free rider issue where it's almost like you go to the movies and the first 99 people are free, but the last guy to come in has to pay $5,000. It's just not reasonable. Broad-based funding is the answer for these concerns and for these types of improvements. And that means that everyone that uses these facilities should pay for them, not just the last guy who walks in the door. And that's what this type of a fee increase does. It's not fair to the people who are last in or who are next in, where all of the people that are already there already have it. It should be through consumption-based or some other type of a fee where it's fair to everyone, and everyone pays for the utility services that they're using, not just the next guy. So I'm asking you to reconsider this fee increase and try to make it a little bit more fair to everybody in the community and everyone share in the utilities that they use. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I will go ahead and put you back on mute, Daniel, and we will move to the next person, recognizing Doug Skiles. If you will unmute your line.
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good. I'm Doug Skiles. I'm a civil engineer. I've been working in the doing projects in the JEA area for 20 years. And like Daniel mentioned, I mean, we've had a great relationship with JEA, and really find you to be one of the better agencies that we work with. I was a bit surprised about how this was rolled out. We first heard about the potential for a capacity increase on September 1st at the development meeting, but we weren't given any numbers for that. I had to do some digging and some emails and some calls and some questions. And what I found out was that in 2 weeks, on October 1st, there's going to be a 139% increase in the fee. By 2 years, it would be 556% increase. That's if you combine the water and sewer. I've got a project right now, to give you an example, that would go from $382,000 to $913,000 on October 1st. And what we've been told is that you can't pay this fee until your construction is complete. Well, I've got several projects that are under construction. They've been permitted. We've never had any knowledge of this. My clients, your customers, didn't really have any opportunity to account for this increase in cost in their pro forma, and they really just aren't able to take on that kind of cost. So like Ms. Trimmer suggested, I hope that you would consider grandfathering in anybody that's got a permit as project under construction, that they would be locked into the rates that they assumed were going to be in place when they started. And I'm happy to answer any questions if they come up. Thank you.
Any questions of him? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Doug. I'll go ahead and mute your line, and we will move to recognize Nate. If you'll unmute your line, Nate.
Thank you, and thank you, Chairman Baker. Nate Day. We are a single-family residential developer in Jacksonville. I also sit as the chair for the governmental affairs for the Northeast Florida Builders Association. Echo just what some other people said. We've got a great relationship with JEA. A number of us involved in the governmental affairs side have been having conversations with JEA for a while about this. We've seen several iterations. We've known this is coming. We've been working with them. We did send a letter with a few requests that we would like for y'all to consider. One of them is the grandfathering, which again, I would just echo. Anything that can be done either from a prepayment, if there's a way that if someone has approved JEA sewer and water plans, that any construction and water meters pulled in association with those plans maybe could use the current rate instead of the future rate. We also would ask, I know there's an 18-month phase-in for this. I know at one point, back in March and April, there was a consideration for a longer phase-in, and we would propose that you guys would consider maybe phasing us in over 3 years instead of just the 18 months. We're making up 15 years of not having a fee increase, and we understand it has to happen. We would ask that you don't try to make that happen so quickly. I think this would be a lot more palatable for new home buyers, new businesses, if we could extend that over 3 years. So I would ask that you guys consider that. And then I would just say, there's a few more things that we're still working with JEA on that I want to kind of make sure are brought to the attention. The line extension fee. We would love for this to mirror some other places where the growth capacity includes line extension as well, so that the fees that you're collecting to be spent on capacity improvements can also be spent on line extensions. I think it would be an easy thing to incorporate into this so that you have the ability to use fees. And I know we'll be looking at that later and we'll be involved in that process, which I appreciate. But if we can fix the line extension part too and get much better idea on cost sharing. But the grandfathering option, and if you could consider doing this over 3 years, it would be much easier for businesses to work through. So thank you for your time, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. We'll put you back on mute, and we will recognize Curtis Hart. You'll unmute your line.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to reiterate things that Cindy and Nate and Daniel have said, and it's important for us to get a grandfathering provision. I certainly feel as if you guys could do the prepay option, and we're willing to, if we prepay it, we're willing to. I know the opposition was we had to pay it back. We'll be willing to prepay some of our fees and sign a waiver that we don't want it back, or we want it back, but we are willing to give it up. I do think you ought to look more at cost participations. Oftentimes, I'm building a regional station right now that 16 other homes are going to tie into, but yet I've got the burden of building the entire station, and I get no benefit from the tie-in and sharing some sort of cost sharing with the tie-in to my pump station. Y'all currently have a threshold if we spend in excess of $500,000. Years ago, that used to be 100. I'd like to see that threshold lowered to where we can get some of our money back when we build infrastructure for you, we give it to you, and then others benefit from it, and we never have an opportunity to get reimbursed. Is that a change? Can you still hear me?
I can hear you. Okay.
So, and that's just our plea that you consider the 3 to 5 year rollout and grandfather in and prepayment. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Hart. We will go ahead and mute your line again, sir, and we will recognize Beth Breeding.
Hi, Beth Breeding. So we are residential developers as well as commercial, and a lot of the focus seems to have been on the residential, but I need to speak up for the commercial. During the pandemic, our tenants have been ravaged. We have centers that are 50% vacant. And so in order for us to be able to open any new centers and attract tenants, this fee being 4 times the amount that it's been in the past makes it almost impossible for us to start any new centers and to help small businesses grow and open new businesses. And so I definitely agree with the 3 years. I think the fee is way too high. I do understand that you need the money because you haven't done it for some time, but 15 years of no increases on your side should not equate to 2 years of 15 years worth of increases. It's just not enough. We're not able to absorb it. It literally takes us 3 years from the time we start planning the project to come to fruition on commercial. And so, spanning the fees in over a longer period of time helps those of us plan that take that long to get all of the permitting done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Beth, I'm going to go ahead and remute your line. Chairman Baker, I do not see any other requests to make comments on the WebEx side of the meeting. I'll turn it back over to you, sir.
Cody's.
Yeah, and Chair Baker, when Melissa was up earlier, we'd had another email, but that person has notified us they do want us to read it into the record.
Okay.
Are you okay with Melissa can come
Absolutely.
back to the podium and read it into the record?
This email comes from Matthew Marshall, VP of Development with RISE. To whom it may concern, my name is Matthew Marshall, VP of Development of RISE, a real estate company that's developing Linden House apartments on Racetrack Road and 9B in Duval County. The reason for this email is to discuss the capacity fee increase for JEA and its impact on our development. Last week was the first time I've learned of the capacity fee increases. Our financing is already approved and the closing is scheduled to be finalized with construction commencement in 30 days. Fee increases are certainly part of reality and I'm sure needed for your operations. However, what I'm concerned about is how quickly they were implemented, especially for developments like ours, which are imminent. We will be able to set our meter between October 1st, 2021 and April 1st, 2022. However, that's a $233,837 increase we do not have in our approved lender budget. I see where additional increases are scheduled in 2022 and 2023, which we can underwrite for future developments, but this doesn't help us currently. I'm asking JEA to reevaluate the aforementioned fee increase on developments and grandfather in projects that will start construction no later than November 1st, so we can maintain our approved budgets for financing. Thank you very much for your consideration on this important matter.
Thank you, Melissa.
Jody, can I jump back in real quick? We have one more request for comment, if that is acceptable.
Sure.
We'll recognize Joshua Garrison. Please unmute your line.
You, sir, and I apologize for the delay in connecting. Thank you for hearing me, Mr. Chairman. Thank you to the board of JEA. You guys are a venerable group of business people and civic leaders, and I have no doubt that you all have put a great deal of time into considering what to do here, heavily weighing the consequences. I would just like to opine for a moment upon the consequences to the customers. JEA is such a great customer service oriented organization. And what I believe is happening here, respectfully, is that a portion of the customers are bearing all of the burden for the expenses of the entire organization. Now, I'm not on the board, but this is how I feel. And what's going to happen to the new homeowner who has less affordable housing coming onto the market because these fees have just increased the cost. We're in such a heavy inflationary, volatile, crazy world right in this year. This is just one more thing that may well break the camel's back. Retail shopping centers won't come online. They won't happen. The deals will die. The pro formas won't work. And there will be projects that people will pull the plug on. I hear lobbyists and engineers and developers right now considering pulling the plug on deals because hundreds of thousands of dollars is just not tenable. And then additional customers of JEA, what about the young lady or the young man who's looking for employment at a shopping center that's going to open in Northeast Florida, and the shopping center's not there, the job's not there, they can't get that entry-level opportunity. There's just so many of JEA, the expenses of the JEA, I feel, should be spread broadly across all customers. This is just taking a small sliver of that entire pie of the users who appreciate JEA and putting the entire onus of this expense on them. So I would just respectfully encourage you members of the board to consider tabling this matter, to defer this matter, to give additional thought and consideration and listening, which you've already done tons of, I'm sure, to the development community across all sectors, commercial, multifamily, residential, and really consider these customers as well and how this may be too small of a sliver of the entire customer pie. And I thank you so much for your service and for hearing me out. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate your comments.
Sir.
Thank you. I will go ahead and place Joshua back on mute. We have one more hand raised. If we'll recognize Mike Herzberg. Please unmute.
Mr. Chairman, members, thank you very much for the opportunity. Sorry for raising my hand so late. I'm not used to the Cisco WebEx meetings format, so I couldn't find the hand raise section. But the point of my asking to have the opportunity to speak is just kind of follow up on the comments of both Beth Breeding and Mr. Garrison. Those were excellent comments. You've obviously heard a great deal of input from industry leaders on both the residential and commercial sides. And I think there is a lot more to discuss. To that point, I think Mr. Garrison is exactly correct in saying that the appropriate thing to do would be to defer and allow more time for a detailed input and analysis from the different industries themselves. I know I, as a developer working with Slayman Enterprises, if this type of fee were imposed, especially in the short timeline that was being looked at and consideration wasn't given as was requested here, due to the pro forma impacts, we would definitely be looking to go outside of the JEA area. In other words, we'd kind of be the typical developer that says, in order to make my project work, I've either got to avoid the concurrency costs of this area or the impact fees or these fees here. So you'd be chasing us out of your service area in some regard. So again, I caution you and I ask you again to please consider the great things you've heard today here from the representatives and to give additional time to contemplate this type of a order of magnitude increase. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And that will be the end of the requested comments. Everyone has been placed on mute, and I'll turn it back over to the Board of Directors. Thank you.
Thanks to all of you all for your comments. They're very thoughtful, well presented, and we appreciate it. Next, as we go into this special meeting, can you outline the format of how we will do this, please, Jay?
I can. Yes, thank you. So today's meeting is really a follow-up from the last meeting when we reviewed everything that's on the agenda today for action. We reviewed that at the last meeting, but because of the way that the state laws are written, we needed to have a physical quorum. We didn't have the physical quorum, and so today we are not going to go through the presentations in large detail. We're going to summarize the presentations that we had last time, and then be able to respond to any questions that you all have. So it should be relatively short presentations, but time for questions if you have any. So.
Okay.
To be clear, Jay, these are presentations that we've had many times, not just last meeting.
That's correct,
We've had
yes.
them in the public forum since, I'm trying to think when we first brought this up in the Finance and Audit Committee, beginning of the year,
January,
end of
February,
last year. So
right.
I just want to make sure that everybody who spoke understands we've been having public meetings for a long time about this situation, and I understand your comments, but you know we've had this dialogue for a long time.
Right. That's a good point to remind the public and the board that many of these discussions have been going on for a number of months. The one item that I would clarify that we do have a slightly more information on is, based on some of the questions last time, is the property purchase that we have later on. There's a little bit of clarification that we're from the questions we had at the last board meeting. But otherwise, it is a brief overview to answer any questions that you might have. Thank you.
Okay. Can we get a motion to approve the consent agenda, which includes the board minutes from July 27, August 24, and the fiscal year 2022 board calendar?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. We'll move into the recommended rate adjustments. Do you want to ask Julie to present?
Yes, Julie Crawford is on WebEx and is going to summarize this for you, and then we are available to answer questions. Julie.
All right, good morning, Chair Baker and board members. I'm just going to review the fiscal year 22 rate and fee recommendations that were presented in the August meeting. We presented a recommendation to increase plant capacity fees on a phase-in schedule to collect current costs of capacity, increased tap and meter fees, and an adjustment to the large commercial water consumption rate. We also recommended an increase to all electric energy rates. This, in conjunction with the lower fuel charge, effective October 1st, will not impact electric bills. In addition to those items, administrative changes were also proposed, as is reflected in the red line tariffs attached to the board materials. And these matters are proposed for action, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you, Julie. Are there questions that any of you all have?
Mr. Chair, I do have a question. And I think Marty's point was very well made, that, you know, we've had some lengthy discussion in this regard for a while now. My question is, and I know we've had some discussion, but I may just need a refresher. The hearing some of the public comment with regard to moving from an implementation period of 18 months to 3 years. Have we explored, and what would that budgetary impact look like for us? I've heard, of course, the public comment, but I'm sensitive to what I'm hearing, and I'm just curious as to if that were something that we might consider. What does that look like for us in terms of looking at an implementation period that may be a little bit longer, that might be more palatable to our customers?
Jake, can you comment on that?
I'll start, and then Julie will help fix and address it. So our part of this whole process has been discussion with the groups, and our original recommendation was to do this in one step, and the Home Builders Association, where we met, said that's too much, and so we already had made the change to do in an incremental level. And so what we're asking today for is the adoption of this so that we can move forward with it. And I think we talked about this in a couple of the meetings. We are committed to reviewing this to be sure that it makes sense. So requesting an adoption of all of this with our commitment that we're going to review the details of this, and if there needs to be adjustments and changes, we can come back to you to do that. This gives us the flexibility. It matches up with the needed revenue compared to the capacity that we are needing to add, that we only need to add because there's new customers coming online.
So in terms of the time for implementation, what is our current, is it the 18
Current
months?
timeframe is multi-step, October 1, April.
Connect you.
October, and then April of '23. So it's spread out over that. So between now and that April 1, we will revisit and be sure that the level increase is the right thing for you, and we'll do that. And keep an eye on that each time. But it's the appropriate
just for clarity,
level.
we're talking about the implementation period being 18 months. Is that
That's
right?
right.
That's what I'm asking.
Yes, it is.
And my question was, I've heard a lot this morning about a 3-year implementation. And so my question was, have we looked at what that impact would be if we were to consider doing something over 3 years versus 18 months?
Yeah, it would slow down. My guess is that our cost would continue to go up, and we would have to have larger increases over the next 18 months beyond the 18 months that we're already doing.
But let me, John, can I?
Sure.
I mean, part of this, guys, is how do we, I mean, I think you looked at it from a statewide level.
Yes.
How are we competitive, number one? Number two, if you think about our capital budgets, guys, you know, to do the things that we're talking about doing, we're going to spend $200 to $300 million in capital on the water and sewer side for the next 3 to 5 years to not only work on growth, but septic tank removals and others. So there's, to do the things we got to do in this community to be top in class, we're going to have to stay there. The one thing I would, you know, get your thoughts on, if we ask the developers to pay for those connections, that old rate by the end of the year, could we do that or think about doing that?
Yeah, I think we can look at implementation, how the technical implementation would occur, and we have time to do that between now and the October 1 date when it becomes effective, and then there's already a 90-day grandfathering clause in there that what we heard today is that some people, that is too short, and so we need to
Yeah, but
work
if
through
they're
that.
willing to
figure
pay
that out.
those fees
Yes.
before the end of the year, which, you know, whether it's non-refundable, they're taking a risk.
Yes.
And they get under that
Yes.
gun of what we've proposed. I think that's one thing we could, if you would consider. I
Yes,
think
we
that
can absolutely.
I was going to volunteer because we have an upcoming Finance and Audit Committee meeting that we address the grandfathered situation, because I think that it was quite compelling for the, hearing it for the first time the way we just did today. I'm happy to address that and work through that with staff.
I think it's appropriate for us to look at what those options are and try to get that solved. Yes.
I just want to echo that as well. That was the one component that I heard that, you know, imagining having developed a project and secured the capital funding, and you understand how pro forma works, and then that piece changes before construction is initiated. That's, I'm sensitive to that, so I appreciate your taking that under advisement.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Jay, what is, just so I'm clear, the 90-day grandfather is from implementation 90 days back? Or what, I'm sort of.
Julie, I'm going to let you get that one. The 90 days in the tariff, that's from October through if they're already at a certain place in their construction.
That's right. And while I'm not the technical expert, it gives you 90 days after application to get everything in order. The previous language of the tariff actually doesn't speak to 90 days, so we put that in there to give a little bit of time so that you could get your application in, but then be ready for service in 90 days.
What I'm proposing is go ahead and give people the opportunity to pay before the end of the year under the old rates, and it's non-refundable, which gives them the ability to take the risk or not. But I think if we do this 3-year phase-in, I think you're going to cut your capital budget, which will cut the ability to do the things that they're doing. So I think that piece, I think 18 months is the right thing. I think the grandfathering in, working on that would be appropriate.
Yeah, I think we need to look at a lot of data around that, you know, the size that what the scope and the size is, but we can easily do that in the Finance Committee, which is scheduled, I think, in the next 30 days. So I think it's good timing to do that.
Yes.
Jody, how would we, if we do this, and there seems to be a consensus that makes a lot of sense and is only fair. I mean, it's easy for us to say, well, we've been talking about it for 6 months, but unfortunately, not everybody watches every JEA move, and so I think it really is fair to look at a way of delaying the implementation or allowing prepayment. What would we have to do as far as the motion to accept the tariff changes that are recommended, would we have to do to allow for that consideration?
So, Mr. Chair and board members, there's a resolution that's been presented that collectively addresses the rates that have been recommended without any acknowledgement of a potential for the grandfathering that we've just talked about. So I would recommend that you would approve the changes, and we can do with an amendment to the resolution that we will look at providing a grandfathering provision that we'll be looking at it and addressing at the Finance and Audit Committee meeting in October.
Okay.
Is how I would characterize that, but with no real acknowledgement that what that grandfathering really looks like, we haven't addressed that yet. So, you know, is it when they've applied? Where in the construction timeline do you allow someone to have this grandfathering under the old rates?
And I'm sorry to interrupt. That's what we can study between now and then. If we adopt the resolution as is and then make those adjustments moving forward, that gives us the flexibility, because the Finance Committee meeting is October 14th. Right. And so we can go through this process.
But can the resolution definitively commit us to grandfathering, and then we'll leave it to the Finance Committee to come back to us with what that looks like? That's my question.
I would be concerned about saying that without understanding the data.
Okay.
So what I would say is, you know, the resolution should enlist the support of the Finance and Audit Committee to address the concerns that we heard today and come back with a recommendation to this board.
Because it could be a recommendation that we can't afford the grandfather. I mean, yeah, we don't know until we study the data if we're going to be able to provide.
Can you make a proposed resolution that fits that we can move forward?
Well, I can. I would recommend someone provide if I were going to be providing a motion, I would move to approve the resolution as drafted with an amendment to it that says that the Finance and Audit will address the
I'd say
address and study between now and the October 14th Finance and Audit Committee meeting an opportunity to grandfather
the
implementation of the capacity fees.
Which would be looked at the Audit and Finance Committee and brought to the board.
Brought to the board.
I'd like to add to that, to us to look at the 18 versus 36. I know that what we're saying that we think and we feel, but if we're going to take a look at the data, then let's look at all of it, so that then we can make an informed decision relative to both of those matters.
Agreed. We did that study 3 years versus 18 a while ago, but we'll bring it back. Absolutely.
I move that motion.
Let me get clarity. The Finance Committee's meeting is in the middle of October, and October 1st is the effective date of this new tariff. So how do we deal with that?
There's already a 90-day grandfathering that's involved, and we'll study it in a way that will be fair to everyone that is involved. So I think if something were to happen in those 14 days that someone is impacted, then we would adjust that and be able to address it. I think this is mostly an implementation type schedule that we can have some flexibility on how we approach it.
Okay. Do we
You feel comfortable?
Anybody want to make a motion?
I made the motion.
Okay. Is
Did
there
you-
a second?
Wait, John, do you feel comfortable with that motion?
Yeah,
Okay.
I do.
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, thank you all. I know I speak for the builders that they appreciate the fact that we're not just jamming this in, and they were very complimentary of JEA and how we've worked with people, and I think it's important that we continue to do that and be fair to people that have made plans, gotten finance, gotten permits, so forth.
And Mr. Chair, before we go on, just from a clarification perspective, from a motion that's been approved by this board, it's really the study of the implementation of the capacity fees that have just been passed is going to be studied and reviewed at the Finance and Audit Committee to be brought back to this board.
Yeah.
And the commitment that we're going to do that within 90 days.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the Finance Committee is going to hear about a 3-year thing. I think it's really important to stress the fact that we're doing the first step, and each time we raise it up again, we're going to review it. And so it's almost like at any one of those times, we could stretch it out as well if that was appropriate.
He said that
Right.
better than I did.
All right, thank you.
Okay. I think we go now to the pay for performance. Pat Malis.
Good morning, Chair Baker and members of the board. At the August board meeting, the proposed fiscal year 22 pay for performance program metrics were provided for the board's review and consideration. The proposed fiscal year 22 metrics will continue to focus on the company's strategic initiatives and areas of focus. These new metrics are designed to better align the employee's ability to influence the metrics and the execution of the company's capital plan. The fiscal year 22 program payout is estimated not to exceed $8.9 million. We ask the board's consideration and approval for the fiscal year 22 pay for performance program. Thank you for your time.
Move it.
We've got a motion. Is there a second?
Second. Second.
Second. Further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Great. I think I'm really pleased with the changes you made in the pay for performance plan, and I'm glad we're proceeding to do that. Next is the real property purchase for the Purified Water site. Jordan Pope.
Yes, sir. Good morning, Mr. Chair. As you stated, this item is the proposed purchase of an 11.88 acre parcel of land to support JEA's Purified Water program. As a follow-up to the discussion at the last board meeting, JEA completed the Integrated Water Resource Plan, or IWRP, and presented the results to the board in March of 2021. The IWRP identified purified water as a tool in meeting JEA's future water supply needs. This water purification process further purifies high-quality reclaimed water to drinking water quality. The program is critical to meeting JEA's water supply objectives, including aquifer sustainability, and is a critical solution in complying with the surface water discharge bill that has previously been discussed. JEA's Purified Water program began in 2016 and consists of 3 phases. Phase 1, the R&D testing phase, was successfully completed, and the next step in the program is a demonstration facility, which will be used to optimize treatment, train staff, such as the operators who will run the facility, and to facilitate public outreach by way of a visitor education center within the plant. As we discussed at last month's meeting, the IWRP identified JEA South Grid as the location for the purified water facility. The subject site near JTB and Southside Boulevard is well positioned for integration to JEA's existing system and will allow room for expansion. JEA has negotiated a purchase price in the appraised amount of $3,276,000 with the seller, and staff recommends approving the purchase as outlined in Resolution 2021-18. As information, the full project cost is estimated at $40 million, which includes research, training, testing, and public outreach. This project is critical to JEA's implementation of the IWRP and complying with the Surface Water Discharge Bill. Joining us in the meeting today are Rob Zamatero, JEA's Director of Water Wastewater Planning and Development, and Ryan Popko, who is the Project Manager for the Purified Water Initiative, to help answer any questions that the board may have. Thank you.
Jay, you said you had other things?
No, this was, Jordan just did it. It was not the summary because there were a couple of questions and he went ahead and filled out more. This is the, as Jordan said, just the next step in this purified water project that is a journey that we're on to comply with the surface water discharge and the pressures that we have on treating our water. So okay. He's covered the additional items already.
Are there any questions of this?
Just one question, Mr. Chair. Thank you. Curious to know, is this the only plant? Will there be others developed over the course of time?
Yeah, this is a demonstration project of 1 million gallons per day, and part of the project is to educate and train and learn for ourselves, train operators, train and teach the public what is going on and how we're going about doing this. And the integrated resource plan that looks out over 20 or 30 years has significantly more of this in it.
Move it.
All right, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second. Further discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye. 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 Opposed? Okay. Is there any other business or closing consideration to come before the board?
The only thing that I should have said at the very beginning is that while we didn't have an official CEO report, I do want to recognize the passing of Councilmember Hazuri. He's obviously a well-respected member of the community. He served in a lot of elected positions over the year, and we at JEA extend our sympathy and prayers to his family, friends, and those that he worked with. I think he worked for a long time to try to make Jacksonville a better place. In fact, as a public servant, he was doing what we're called to do every day, which is improving lives and building community. And so I don't want the meeting to go by without recognizing that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for saying that. Are we going to cancel the scheduled meeting? Is it the 27th?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
I think you did that with the adoption of the calendar.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
The only thing I'd also say, John, is I know Jay and Joe and others have been focused on Plant Vogel, and I just really appreciate, I mean, this is a $3 billion asset that we have a certain amount of ability to influence, but very little. And the focus, I just want to thank Jay to really start and focus on. So thank you.
Thank you. And at the next meeting, which is October 26th now, we will dive deeper into the history of the decisions and the future of how Plant Vogel is going to impact and work with us. And Board Member DeSalvo has been involved in getting maybe a deeper dive than he really intended.
No, it was well worth it, so I appreciate it, Jay.
Thank you for your work.
Thank you, Joe, and thank you, Jay. It is important, and it's material. Okay, hearing nothing else to come before the meeting, we are adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thanks all.